Grand Rising, big friends. Good morning, and welcome again to the Parinama practice space, which is a place where we're developing a regular practice for uniting cognition, emotion, and logic, and if at a fixed time. So on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we are meeting at 8 together to practice. So today's topic is going to be part of a 3 session theme for this week, which is making a case for the fact that there is nothing wrong with you. In fact, everything that we will be doing as we traverse the adventure of Parinama is very central to this very notion, but we deconstruct this. And basically, what we're doing is we're getting to a place where we're on our own side and we're viewing ourselves with inherently positive intent. So, I'm Katie Bickford. I used to be an international team builder. I've built teams all over the world. And now I am the founder, co creator, author of Parinama Method. So, before we get started, what I'd like to do is just let's start by taking in a deep breath through our nose. So, sniffing the flower and deep breath with an exhale out through the mouth, blowing out the candle. And just along with this central notion of cognition, emotion, and reflex, I want to invite you to check in with the components of your sense of well-being. So first, I want to check in with like, how does your body feel right now? Um, on a scale of 1 to 10, just making a pretty quick assessment of just noticing, like, is there relative comfort? Are you feeling healthy? Do you feel buoyant? Like, just like physically, how does it, how, like, kind of, do you feel really good? Do you feel really bad? Just making an honest assessment and checking in with yourself, showing up for yourself in this very particular way. Next, I want to do just a quick assessment of how you feel emotionally. Do you feel relatively calm? Do you feel, are you in a good mood, bad mood? Are you accepting of that and just sort of feeling it? Or is it feeling overwhelming? Just are do you have like scaries for work? Do you have is there a conflict that you have going on that you feel like overtaken by and that's taking up a lot of your emotional bandwidth? Just noticing, just without any type of like trying to shift it or make it better or worse or judging, just like what, just showing up for ourselves and saying like, yeah, no, it's about a and fill in the blank. And and last but certainly not least, talking about like make an assessment of how do we feel mentally. So this has to do with like your sort of like cognition. So do you feel sharp or do you feel logy? And this can lead, this can actually be, all of these things, they kind of tend to like come together because all as one, it's like how we feel. Like it's like, so it's sort of usually it's like, how do you feel? And then you sort of like pick like usually like one of the lanes. But in this case, what we're doing is we're looking at each of them. So we're looking at the mental state and thinking, okay, do I feel sharp? Do I feel kind of logy? Just mentally, do I feel like I'm ready to like take on new information, or do I feel just kind of like maxed out and burned out? So just give yourself a number on the scale of 1 to 10. And sometimes it's helpful, so one of the things that I've done in the past is use this tool to assess what, like a beginning of the day and end of the day, or even going into a situation, if I'm going into a meeting or into like, a group of friends or anything, to be like, okay, I feel, I'm going to rate myself going in and I'm going to rate myself going out. And that can be, provide some insight for like the places in your life that you're getting energy. So the comparative thing of like, where do these numbers climb and where do they decline? So one more breath here, inhale and let let's get into it. Exhale, blow out the candle. Let's talk about it. There is nothing wrong with you. All right, the topic. This is very central to Parinama. And so the kind of the notion of like there's something wrong with you, let me just be really clear about it. You know, the feeling or the thought that maybe there's, there's something about your body that's uniquely gross or shameful, whether it has to do with, things about your like physical health, things that you feel ashamed about or secretive about, things that have to do with like skin, weight, appearance, whatever, that there's something about your body that is, that is like uniquely gross or makes you inherently unworthy, unlovable, like, whatever. So this is, and just a reminder, this is a case that these things are actual fallacies, and we're going to work tirelessly um, to uncover them. There's another thing, which is like there are things that you've done that are so bad and must be hidden. And this is, so here's another example that there's things like if people only knew. And then, another example of, they're like believing that there's something wrong is, if people knew what I really thought. If people knew what I really thought, it's like that I don't really like this person, that, that sometimes I don't, common ones like I don't like that I'm, fill in the blank, a mother, a child or whatever, that it's like these secret feelings that feel so verboten that we don't actually even process them. We just stop them in their tracks and suppress them because we think and potentially believe that there is something about us that is just so dark that if it were to be known, it would reveal this like this truth, that even things like behaviors, when people get exhausted and they act like terribly, that they're like, oh, see, that's the real me. We're not going to get that deep into these topics because we will, throughout the process of doing these practices and going through the book, we will absolutely be taking all of these on and doing like the deepest of most extraordinary dives into this stuff. And what is the word for it? It's like it's like demystifying it or whatever. But I just want to throw back to the opening quote of this lovely book here, which is the Hubert Selby quote, which, saying that sometimes we have the absolute certainty there's something inside us that's so hideous and monstrous that if we ever search it out, we won't be able to stand looking at it. But it's when we're willing to come face to face with the demon that we face the angel. So, for today's topic and for today's discussion, we're going to do a little bit of an exercise at the end of this. We're going to talk about how do you solve for this? How do you solve for this sense that there is things about you that are just kind of uniquely hideous or uniquely embarrassing or uniquely gross or need to be hidden in a way that they're just absolutely unnatural. So, in Parinama method, and I'm going to use a couple of visuals here. Let's see what we can do here. I'm going to do a couple visuals. Take a little spin here. What we do throughout this process, and certainly will, it's an undertaking that is, it's a lifetime. But for today, we're just going to talk about, I need to figure out the look, I'm like peeking out over this. That we just what we're talking about is that our nervous system is constructed chronologically over time, and it's built primarily before we have conscious memory. So, what I mean by being built is that there's the creation of reflexive responses behavior patterns, beliefs that are formed before we actually know it's even happening. So, our episodic memory comes online when we're about 7 or 8 years old. And if you can recall, there's just a point where you start remembering your life, but there was like the whole baby, infant, toddler life where there might be flashes of memory, which are usually associated with very strong, either incredibly positive or incredibly negative emotions and experiences. But that as a whole, that whole part of our history is behind a kind of like, or is in a bit of a black box. And so when we're talking about the reflexes, the behaviors and the beliefs that are formed during that period of time, we are going to look at throughout the process of Parinama method, and I'm going to open this guy up right here, is we're looking at, pardon me, we're looking at here, you can see me, the shadow in the background, is that the reflexes and safety are built out when we're infant, when we are in utero. And so that sense that the world and the physical reality is a safe and secure place, that foundation is set at like the earliest of like moments of our physical existence up to about like 6 months, possibly even into the first year. And then the thing about like our capacity for feeling and emotional literacy is created when we are babies. And it starts with our emotional relationships with our primary caregivers. And those shape our trust in our internal responses to things in terms of how our caregivers respond to us, whether they respond to us appropriately or are out of sync with us. And then when we're looking at toddler, that's where we learn how we behave as a self-directed, autonomous individual. Now, keep in mind, above that, you have the socialization age, which is when the episodic memory comes along. But that's when we start to become more interested in socializing and connecting with the world outside of us, further outside of us. So the reason that I'm spending really an arguably laborious amount of time talking about this is that for Parinama method, a lot of what we examine, we go in through reflex and somatic and physical feeling and experience. We go in through emotion, what surfaces. And the thing is, the narrative part, which is like, what's the story, is understandably absent. So if we're looking to trace a storyline, the thing that we can find evidence of is actually reflexes and behaviors. So we will certainly not have the time today to get into this, but what I want to be offering is a note of encouragement that we can find these aspects of ourselves, like the hypervigilance, the emotional capacity, the sense of confidence and security and individuality. And we can work on them in a way that we make really, really um, seismic and massive shifts in the experience of who we are being alive. And that in the process of doing that, everything in our life can change. One example is I had someone, and I won't go into too much detail, but this weekend I had someone be really cruel to me, a stranger. And, when it was over, I thought, wow, the a previous version of me would have immediately jumped to being protective in a way where I would have been nasty back. And instead, I just immediately said, there's no version of events where this is appropriate. And they kept talking. And I said, you're done. And they kept talking. I said, you are done. And they kept talking. I said, you are done. And they stopped. And so it was an interesting thing because it like when afterwards, my feelings were still hurt. Like there was still the feeling of having been surprised by unpleasant voltage. And I bring up the topic, but I think it might be triggering for some people. It would make the story better. admittedly, but in the spirit of trying to keep this as a positive start to the day. But, the thing of looking back was, I was really, as much as I was sort of processing out the voltage and thinking about the topic, and that the thing is, like, the thing with somatic work is that I didn't have to think about that response. It just was immediately about the formation. It's like the assertion of my boundary and then, like, the holding it up. And then it just happens because of how much positive regard I have for myself. I don't second guess myself. It's not it you know, I don't even know how I didn't actually know how to do that. Like, that wasn't something that, like, when that surprised me in that place, that was something that I immediately knew how to do. So I bring this up as an example of the change that can happen, because previous me would have literally become, like, vitriolic and just served the person back, like, 5 times harder, and then been left having, like, caused harm to somebody who's already clearly harmed. Like, that's nobody in their heart of heart is, like, imagining themselves as the kind of person that does things like that. There's not that's not like hero behavior, that's villain behavior, and nobody really, as much as we're like, I'm in my villain era, that nobody's really trying to actively place themselves as a villain. Like, people like to see themselves as the good guy. So, what am I talking about here, right? So this week we are going to go through 3 sections or 3 themes or 3 topics or 3, I don't know. There's gonna be 3. I'm gonna do 2 today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And, like I mentioned, these are much larger topics that we get to in the book, but this is the introduction into how this weaves itself into the practice. And so the first today, it's kind of the notion is of, the nervous system that we build with the available tools and capacity that we have, which frankly, if it is not supported by our environment, is very limited. And it's a miracle that we are able to create the adaptations that we do, which, by the way, when we get older, are maladaptive. But, the thing is, the respect for the fact that those things arose to protect us when there is nothing else that could. So maybe, shifting beliefs that are actually, like, quite frankly, probably not that positive, but those that came to exist to support and to love us so deeply that it offers us a path to survival. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the shadows, which are fear, guilt, shame, anger. The list goes on, but we're going to be talking about them as they relate to each of these segments of our nervous system, which in Parinama method are called hubs. And we're going to look at how each of these shadows has a organic necessary function that, when it's used in its naturally arising organic presentation, like fear has us jumping out of way of danger, that it's actually life-saving. But when it becomes chronic hypervigilance, it becomes life-taking. So we're going to look at some of these aspects that are commonly, that are adaptation forming, and hopefully shift a little bit of our relationship with them. And then, in the third session, or this third, what is it? I don't know, theme, whatever, the third Thursday, I was just on Thursday, I'm going to be talking about a bit more about the body mind and the somatic and conscious reclamation process that we get into here with Parinama method. So the key thing here, I guess the point that I'd like to make, is that our nervous system, while it is formed chronologically, the these the storage of these beliefs, behaviors, reflexes, it's stored in our body as responsiveness that just arises whenever a certain stimulation comes up. So, these are stored as feelings in our body that are coded to our comforts, and and it comforts with familiarity, whether the familiar is actually a safe thing or not. We are coded to find familiar things to feel safe. So that's something that we look at. And I think another very important part of all of this is to talk about how we are not this is so I think one of the kind of knee-jerk responses folks tend to have with this is that, look, it's like getting sunny. I'll move in a little bit closer. Is that this absolves us, where it's like nothing's our fault and we're just kind of cranky toddlers. But the thing is that this is actually about taking like an extraordinary level of responsibility, but it's accountability without self-loathing. So radical ownership with foundations of empathy and compassion, and that ultimately what we're doing, what we're shifting with ourselves is our relationship where we reflexively assume positive intent with ourselves. This is really where we're going, where we're always on our side, where we're trying to understand ourselves in a way of understanding, like, why did I do that? And examining it and returning to a reflex that was created before we had the cognitive capacity to evaluate it and make decisions and even inspect it and work with it. So, yeah, it's really great. It's really great, I gotta say. This is yeah, life in the Parinamaverse. Life is better in the Parinamaverse. So I was gonna walk through the gingerbread person, and I was gonna do this little reading because the book opens up with the Thomas Merton quote, and I did read this before, which is, "Finally, I'm coming to the conclusion that my highest ambition is to be what I already am, that I will never fulfill my obligation to surpass myself unless I first accept myself, and if I accept myself fully in the right way, I will already have surpassed myself." And the first short paragraph of the book is, "You and your life are not a series of problems to be solved. You're not a math test, a sequence of equations that need to be resolved using the correct calculations. Your life is a poem, a walk in the woods through valleys and over mountaintops with dark parts, lush areas, the tang of rot and musk blending with the air, the sun on your skin or in the rain and muscles burning. Your life is to be lived and experienced with all these elements: sunlight, darkness, musk, verdancy, rot, and fresh air." And it goes on and on and on and on. So let's just do a quick exercise here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a screen. Nope. What did I just do? Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Is it this one? It's not that great. I guess I'll do this one. Okay. I wish this was a little bit bigger because I'd really like you to be able to just stare into the leaves as we do this. But so this is, if you're following along in the book, this is the body mind tune in, and this is on page 272. And the purpose of this exercise, actually, I'll look you eyeball to eyeball here for a moment. The purpose of this exercise is to bring ourselves into our physical experience, similar to the check in at the top of the session, where we're just separately evaluating mental, emotional, physical, that what we're trying to do, instead of everything being this tangle, that's sort of this overwhelming thing that's like, yeah, I just feel ugh, that we're actually pulling things out and being able to sort of pull forward maybe sort of more positive aspects and be able to make the thing, like certain other elements, more addressable. So this exercise, and I did this a lot when I was writing Parinama Method, which was when I would become incredibly overwhelmed, and that is something I can promise you, it's the Parinama promise, is that overwhelm happens as we're developing our capacity in all of our hubs because we are confronting things that are beyond our current capacity and building from there. That that we can really go back to like old patterns of either dissociation or overwhelm or just disembodiment, like overthinking is a disembodiment and a dissociation. So this is something that I would do, and it only takes a few, like it's probably less than a minute. As I read it, it will take longer, but the purpose of this is ultimately like if you actually do it as your own practice, like internally, it you kind of go dipty, you know, dink donk dink right through it. So actually, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna use this guy here. All right. So page 272 in the book, if you want to make it your own. So first, notice your feet and establish the connection of both feet on the ground. Slightly bend your knees and unlock them if you're sitting. Unnecessary. Squeeze your glutes, your bum, to a tremor. So squeeze and like you shake a little bit, and then slowly, 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 gently release. Maybe accompany that with a breath. Now, even if you're sitting, this is available for you, which is make a hula hoop movement with your hips. Once to the right, twice to the right, and then once to the left, and another time to the left. Now push your feet or your bum into the ground, and then extend your posture upwards with your eyes facing directly forward. On an inhale, expand your torso simultaneously in all directions, 360 degrees. Paying special attention to your breath, extending your back body, followed by a single sharp exhale through the nose using the diaphragm if you can. Take a natural, slow inhale with your hands at your side. Exhale your arms out. And then inhale your hands to your heart. So hand on top of hand over your heart. Now hold hands on the heart for one breath and connect to yourself. Single gentle neck roll clockwise. And then one counterclockwise. Be gentle, nothing too extreme. You don't want any pain there. Inhale the chin to the sky. Optional, unlock the jaw and open the mouth wide and stick out your tongue. Ah. And then exhale your chin down to your chest. And then quick tug on the earlobes and massage the ears and say, even as challenges come my way, I love and accept myself. Even as challenges come my way, I love and accept myself. Place the heels of your hands on your eyes and inhale. Keeping your hands there, visualize the day ahead. Imagine how you want to feel. Go back through mental, emotional, physical. If there's one of those that you really like, how do you want today to feel? And think of one specific thing you want to happen and bring yourself into a positive outcome for your day. Take a couple breaths if necessary to really see and feel this, to really invest in this intention and this sensibility for the day ahead. So on the exhale, so take an inhale, and on the exhale, remove your palms and widen your eyes into bug eyes, taking in as much as possible. So bug eyes, and now try to look at like take in the periphery, take in more, 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 more. Expand your visual perception to the extent possible. And now, with your nose facing forward, lift your eyes to the sky. You can debug them. So nose facing forward, lift your eyes up to the sky. So this is kind of stretching your eyes a little bit. On the inhale, and then on the exhale, lower them to look forward. And you may want to do that again. So inhale with your nose facing forward, lift your eyes to the sky, stretching them a bit. And then on the exhale, lower them to just looking forward. Now comb your fingers through your scalp. Give your hair a slight tug upwards. And now shake out your hands and do a little body wiggle and stomp and tap your feet on the ground. Now, now just take a moment to tune in and notice how your body feels. Just being a little bit more present, and imagine that just taking a minute to do, and that's available for you to do standing in the line, waiting in a meeting, whatever. All right. So, our big takeaway for today, and I've run a little bit over and I apologize for that, is that there is nothing wrong with you, and we are going to continue to build this case. So, don't worry if you didn't get it today, we will keep going. My recommendation for today is to drink a big glass of water and stay hydrated. This is the low cost, no cost recommendation. And if having a cup of tea gets the job done, there you go. And then for tomorrow's topic, we are going to talk about the shadows and their purpose in your life and how they serve you. So without any further ado, I just want to thank you for coming along for the ride. The sun is in my eyes and it is time to start the day. I'm sending you so much love and I can't wait until I see you tomorrow. Bye.